Hello students, welcome to Saurabh Sir's classes. In this video, I'll be discussing probability with you. And this concept of probability will help you in various competitive exams. It will also help you to brush up your concept on probability if you have missed it out in your class 11 and 12. So, for more videos on probability, you can keep checking our channel and stay tuned. Now let's start with probability, and before knowing probability we are going to discuss the various terminology that are needed to study probability. So I will start with outcomes. What is outcomes? Suppose you are conducting an experiment. So when you are conducting an experiment in a lab or in a statistical program, then you will see that the experiment will have various results. These results of the experiment are known as the outcomes. Suppose you are throwing a die. So when you are throwing the die, you will have the outcomes as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These results of the experiment of throwing a die are known as the outcomes of this experiment. So the results of an experiment are called outcomes. Example, in case of throwing a die, the outcomes will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now we will talk about random experiment. We all know experiment, but what is a random experiment and why it is called random? Random experiment. When you are conducting an experiment, you obviously don't know what the results will be. So, as you cannot predict the results of the experiment in advance, these experiments are known as random experiments. Suppose when you are throwing a die or tossing a coin, you do not know what results will turn up at the end of the experiment. So these experiments are known as random experiments. So the experiments which have results that cannot be predicted in advance are called random experiment. Example, throwing a die, tossing a coin, and so on. Now we will talk about random event. What is a random event? Random event. When you are conducting an experiment, it can have various outcomes, and some of the outcomes have a common attribute in them. By common attribute, I mean a property which is common between all of the outcomes. These outcomes are actually named as random event. So how do you actually explain the random events? Let me give you an example. Suppose you are throwing a coin. You are throwing a die, you can toss a coin also, but in that case you will have only two outcomes, so you cannot actually define or explain random event with that. So for that we need throwing a die. When you are throwing a die, you can get two types of outcomes. One is even indexed faces and the other is odd indexed faces. So all the odd indexed phases has odd numbers on the face and even indexed phases has the even numbers on the face. So this is the common attribute among all of them. So when you are saying this, we can say that the outcomes or the set of outcomes of even indexed phases or odd indexed phases are termed as random event. So the outcomes of an experiment which have a common attribute among themselves are termed as random event. Example: set of even or odd indexed phases, in an experiment of throwing a die. Let's move on to the next topic. The next topic is, let me add a page. Yes. Next topic is sample space. What is a sample space? When you are conducting an experiment, either it is in a lab or in a statistical program, you can have various outcomes of the experiment. These various outcomes of the experiment are supposed to be written in a particular way. This way of writing the outcomes of an experiment are termed as sample space. That is, those outcomes of an experiment are actually a set, and in that set we write the results of an experiment as a sample space. So sample space is basically the set which holds all the outcomes of an experiment. Sample space is the collection or set of all possible outcomes of a random experiment. We of course denote sample space by S is the denotation, and for example we take throwing a die, and in that case the sample space will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we will talk about mutually exclusive events. Mutually exclusive or disjoint events. So, what are mutually exclusive or disjoint events? When you are actually conducting an experiment, two events A and B are said to be mutually exclusive if they have no common elements or outcome. So, if A and B are mutually exclusive, they cannot occur together. Like, suppose you are throwing a die. In case of throwing a die, you cannot get the event of odd indexed phases and even indexed phases at once, because you have the condition of mutually exclusiveness, and the mutual exclusiveness only occur when the two events have no common elements between them. So the two events A and B of an experiment are said to be mutually exclusive or disjoint when they have no common elements, no common elements. For example, even indexed faces and odd indexed faces of a dice. So this is the mutually exclusive events. Now I will talk about union of events. What is union of events? Union of events. Union of events is actually that set of outcomes which belongs to either A or B or both A and B. So let us take an example, like when we are throwing a die, we get two types of outcomes. For example, we get for even indexed phases, is even is equals to 2, 4, 6. For odd indexed phases, we get 1, 3, 5. So when we take the union of these two events, we get S even plus S odd. We also write this as S even union S odd is equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the union of events is actually the set of outcomes of those events which either belong to A or belong to B or belong to both of A and B. So this is our union of events. Now we will talk about complement of an event. So complement of event, complement of event. When you are conducting an experiment, you will have a set of outcomes which we denote as S. And now let us take another set of outcomes which has some common qualities in it as A. So by complement of event, we actually mean those events which belongs to A but does not belong to S. So we can actually write the complement of event A as A complement is equals to S minus A. So when we are talking about the total outcome of an experiment of throwing a die, we get the total outcome as S is equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And for odd indexed phases, if we take it as A, we get 1, 3 and 5. So when we are taking A complement, that is AC, we get S minus A, and that will be equals to 2, 4 and 6. This actually gives us the set of even indexed phases. Even indexed phases. So by complement of an event, we mean that those set of outcomes which actually belongs to S but does not belong to A. Well, thank you for watching the video. For more videos on probability, you can keep checking our channel and stay tuned. Thank you.